Hello, my friends. It's Oles here. Welcome back to the English Pro podcast, where you learn real English through stories. You don't need a book, and you don't need to study grammar today. You just need to listen, imagine, and understand. That's how language becomes natural when you feel it. So, sit back, relax, and let me tell you another story. Today's story is about a small village, a strange light in the night sky, and a young man who was brave enough to follow it. It's a story about curiosity, belief, and how one night can change everything. The story begins in a quiet town called Linvale, surrounded by hills and rivers that shine under the moonlight. People there live simple lives. They wake early, work in the fields, and go home before dark. But one night, something strange happened. It was a cold night in late October. The sky was clear, full of stars, so many that it looked like silver dust across black velvet. And then, out of nowhere, a light appeared. It wasn't a star. It wasn't a plane. It moved too slowly for that, and too smoothly. It was bright blue, glowing like the sea under sunlight, and it hovered above the hills. Everyone in Linvale saw it, but no one dared to leave their house. They just watched from their windows, whispering. Except for one person, Noah. Noah was 19, quiet, and always curious. He worked at the bakery with his father, but his mind was always somewhere else. He loved the sky, the stars, and the idea that maybe, just maybe, there was more out there than anyone believed. When he saw the light, he didn't feel fear. He felt pulled, like it was calling to him. He grabbed his coat, his flashlight, and his small notebook, the one where he wrote everything he couldn't explain, and stepped outside. The night air was cold and still. He could hear the crickets, the wind, and the distant sound of water running in the river. And above the hills, the light still waited. He started to walk. The path to the hills was long, full of stones and wild grass. But Noah didn't stop. His breath turned into white clouds in the cold air. The light seemed to move with him, not away, not closer, just there, watching. As he climbed, he began to think about what the others might say if they saw him. Maybe they'd laugh. Maybe they'd call him crazy. But he didn't care. Something inside told him this moment mattered. When he reached the top of the hill, he stopped to catch his breath. And there it was right above him, the blue light, silent and beautiful, slowly moving in circles. It was so close he could see its reflection in his eyes. He took one small step forward, and suddenly, everything went quiet. Even the wind stopped. The sound of the night disappeared. Noah felt his heart beating faster. He looked down and saw that his feet were glowing slightly, blue dust, soft like powder, covering the ground. He looked up again, and the light started to move away. Slowly at first, then faster, flying over the next hill. Without thinking, Noah ran. He ran through the grass, his shoes wet with dew, his flashlight shaking in his hand. He tripped once, got back up, and kept going. The light was leading him deeper into the forest behind the hills, a place he'd never gone before. The trees were tall and dark, and the air smelled like pine and rain. He could barely see where he was going, but the blue glow painted the path ahead of him. Every time he thought it disappeared, it would flash again, waiting for him to follow. Noah's heart was racing now, not from fear, but from something stronger, something like wonder. Then, suddenly, the light stopped again. This time, it was hovering above a small lake. The water was so still it looked like glass, and the reflection of the blue glow danced across the surface. Noah stood there, panting, looking at it. He whispered, "What are you?" For a moment, it felt like the light heard him. It pulsed, once, twice, like it was breathing. Then a faint sound reached his ears. Not a voice exactly, more like music. Soft, low, and endless like wind through strings. Noah took another step toward the lake. The blue glow spread wider, covering the trees and the ground. He could feel warmth now, gentle and calm. He knelt by the edge of the lake, and the moment his hand touched the water, the light vanished. Everything went dark again. The forest was silent. The only sound was Noah's quick breathing and the soft ripples in the water. He blinked, tried to see something, anything, but the light was gone, completely gone. He stood up slowly, unsure if what he saw was even real. Was it a dream? Was he imagining it? But then he noticed something strange. On the surface of the lake, floating near the shore, was a small silver object, round, smooth, and glowing faintly. He reached for it. It was cold to the touch, but light, almost weightless. When he held it in his hand, he felt the same warmth he had before deep inside his chest. He put it in his pocket, looked around one more time, and started walking back toward the village. But as he walked, he didn't feel tired. He didn't feel cold. He just felt awake, completely awake. And somehow, he knew his life would never be the same again. When Noah returned to Linvale, the sky was already turning pale gray. The first light of morning touched the rooftops, and smoke began to rise from the chimneys. The quiet village was waking up, birds singing, dogs barking, someone opening a shop door. To everyone else, it was just another day. But to Noah, everything looked different. He walked home slowly, his shoes wet, his hair messy, his pocket heavy with the silver object. He didn't tell anyone where he had been. Not yet. Inside, his father was already baking. The smell of bread filled the small kitchen. "Morning, son," his father said, smiling. "You're up early today." "Yeah," Noah said softly, still half lost in thought. "Couldn't sleep." He sat down, took a piece of bread, but barely tasted it. His mind was still in the forest, still hearing that strange, soft music. He wanted to tell his father, but how could he explain something he didn't understand himself? So he said nothing. Later that day, Noah went to his small attic room and took the silver object from his pocket. He placed it on the table near the window. It was smooth and round, like a pebble, but not from this world. It shimmered faintly when sunlight touched it, and for a moment it seemed to pulse again, like it had a heartbeat. He opened his notebook and began to write. Every detail, every sound, every feeling, he wrote it all. The blue glow, the still air, the lake, the warmth, the silence afterward. He didn't want to forget any of it. But when he looked back at the object, something had changed. It wasn't glowing anymore. Now it looked like plain silver, cold and quiet. He sighed and whispered, "What are you trying to tell me?" And then, faintly, almost too soft to hear, there was that same music again, from somewhere deep inside the object. It wasn't loud. It wasn't scary. It was comforting. For the next few days, Noah carried it everywhere, in his pocket, close to his heart. When he held it, he felt calm, like everything in the world was connected somehow. But he also felt something else, a question, unspoken, waiting to be answered. One evening, he walked back to the lake. The forest was quiet again, no lights this time, no blue glow. Just the wind, the trees, and his own footsteps. He knelt by the same spot and took out the silver object. The water was perfectly still, just like before. He whispered, "If you can hear me, show me what you want." For a moment, nothing happened. Then a single ripple moved across the lake, slow, calm, almost invisible. The object began to warm in his hand again. He held it tighter, eyes fixed on the water. Then he saw something, A reflection, faint but clear. It wasn't his face. It was the light, that same blue light, returning, rising from beneath the surface. Noah didn't move. The glow grew brighter, and this time it didn't stop at the surface. It lifted slowly, floating above the lake, humming softly. It pulsed once, twice, and then drifted toward him. He didn't step back. He just stood there, his hand still holding the small silver stone. The light hovered in front of him, and for a moment, everything around him went quiet again. Then, the two lights, the one from the object and the one in the air, began to merge. It was blinding for a second, but then the glow softened, wrapping around him like warm wind. He closed his eyes. When he opened them again, he was standing in the same spot. But the light was gone. The object, too. In its place, there was a mark on his palm, a small blue circle that shimmered faintly like a drop of light. He walked home under a sky full of stars. He didn't feel afraid. He didn't feel confused anymore. He felt chosen somehow. That night, he dreamed of places he had never seen, skies he had never stood under, and voices he couldn't understand but somehow knew were kind. When he woke, the mark was still there. It glowed faintly when he touched it, and deep inside, he felt something new, a quiet connection to the world around him. The sound of the wind, the river, the stars, they all felt alive now, as if whispering to him. Noah smiled. He didn't need to chase the light anymore. It was with him now. Weeks later, people in Linvale began to notice small blue lights in the sky again. Sometimes they appeared near the hills, sometimes over the river. But this time, no one was afraid. They said it was just the night, just the stars playing tricks. But Noah knew. Every time he saw the glow, he felt that same warmth in his chest, a silent reminder of that night. He kept writing in his notebook, page after page, not about fear, not about mystery, but about wonder. And every night, before sleeping, he whispered to the stars, "Thank you for showing me the light." The blue mark on his hand shimmered once more, and slowly, softly, faded into his skin, as if it was never there. But deep down he knew it always would be.